Valentine's Day is one of those moments in the year where stories about love is just everywhere in movies, books, social media, and of course, expectations. But not all love stories feel real, and not all of them actually deserve the hype. Today, I want to talk about the stories that really get love and differentiate it from romance. I want to talk about the messy ones, the ones that actually understand love, obviously the bad ones, and the unexpected ones. Why do we like love stories? Why do we like romance novels? Why do we like rom-coms? Because they're about connection. In theater, in movies, in books, it's very easy to sort of portray love because everybody wants to feel that way. Why do we always gravitate to these sort of stories? That is the first thing I ask myself. Like, when I want to read a book, why is a love story more interesting to me than a thriller? Because it's easy, it's aspirational, it's what we all crave for. One way or the other, we're all looking for one type of love. If it's for your pet to love you, your boyfriend to love you, your friends to love you, your parents to love you, we're always searching for love one way or the other and always looking for that connection. That's why I realized love really is about connection. And it's easy to portray that because it's something everybody feels and everybody sort of craves. Rom-coms do so well in theaters because everybody wants that. They do so well in books. That's why publishers like Mills and Boons, Silhouette, Harlequin, they are still in business because everybody's searching for this. But today, I want to be able to explore beyond the commercial aspect of love in storytelling. I want to be able to explore the actual connections with some of the movies that have truly gotten it. And I will give you my top fives. Well, it will be my top fives with a bit of recency bias. However, I'm going to be thoughtful. I'm trying to really talk about love stories that truly are impactful, not just romantic comedies. So now let's talk about the actual movies that I think really understand the concept of love, because for me, love is different from romance. We gravitate I tend to gravitate towards romance more than love, but I truly, for this episode, looked at the movies intentionally to differentiate between romance and love, because although they're both feelings and they're very subjective, it's really different from one person to the other. What I might find romantic will be totally different from what someone else finds romantic. So that's another thing, right? They're both feelings. They could be a noun or a verb, but they're also very different. A night out on the town might be a romantic night for someone, and for another person might be just staying in and watching something or playing a game. That's romantic. And it became kind of hard to differentiate between the act of romance and love in trying to find the movies that I felt were really about love. Because a lot of movies might have a theme of love, but wasn't really about love. And love is also very different for everybody. And there's different kinds of love. There's sibling love, there's agape love, there's actual romantic love, there's familial love, there's friendship love, there's different types of love. So the question now came down to, right, the theme of love, but are we only focusing on romantic love in this day and age, or are we able to, on a day like Valentine's Day, express love in all the ways that it matters to our siblings, to our parents, to our friends? I decided that even though Valentine's Day is typically and historically been for lovers, it's supposed to be a romantic day, I also feel like we should be able to share that day with people that truly matter to us. Because if it's a day of love, even though we should be showing love to people every day, if there's one day marked out, I want to be able to use that day to express how I love the people that are in my life as well. So for instance, I would text my friends Happy Valentine's Day, or text my siblings Happy Valentine's Day, just because I feel like it's not only a day for romance, it's a day for love. And that's just me. Doesn't mean anything. I know for a fact Valentine's Day is for romantic love, but just personally, I feel like it's for every type of love. So I text my friends, I text my siblings, I text everybody that I care about and I actually truly love. Anyways, let's get into the movies that I picked. There are a lot of Valentine's Day movies out there, guys. Well, not just Valentine's Day movies, romantic movies. There's a lot of movies about love. So imagine the hole I went into trying to pick some of these movies. There's a lot of movies. I literally have a whole list of movies, right? But of course, like when you think of romantic movies or movies about love, things that come to your mind immediately is Titanic, When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle. There's a lot of movies. Let me see. So I have my tops, and I've seen all of these movies. By the way, I've seen all of them, but I had to narrow down to about 20. So I think of Valentine's Day movies and romantic movies, movies about love. There's Notting Hill. There's When Harry Met Sally. There's Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. There's The Proposal. You've Got Mail. Me Before You. La La Land. Love Rosie. P.S. I Love You. Sleepless in Seattle. The Notebook. Serendipity. One Day. Gone with the Wind. I know it's not necessarily a romantic, but anyways, I put that in there just for controversy. Titanic, Valentine's Day, 500 Days of Summer, Before Sunset, and Before Sunrise. And now, just in time, Wuthering Heights. We will get deep into this later on. So these are for movies. When I thought about, again, there's a lot more romantic movies out there. There's a lot more movies about love, but these are my tops. Well, the ones that I've watched, and I just feel like they are truly centered around love. That's why I picked them. So of this list, I would pick my top fives that I really feel like they did a good job in depicting the love story. I would start with Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. I like this movie. It's almost cerebral in a way. It's not, honestly, it's not for everyone. I feel like if you watch it and you're expecting like a typical rom-com, that's not what this is at all. It's far from a rom-com actually. And I think it's early 2000s. So again, it's not for everyone. You have to really be interested in an alternative way of seeing love or how love has been depicted in the industry. I think it did a great job in talking about love and just portraying love from an angle that we're not used to. It's almost sci-fi in a way, like not necessarily. Okay, sci-fi might be, but it plays around that, on teetering on that line of sci-fi, which is why I like it. It's very alternative because I'm into fantasy. I love fantasy and sci-fi. I do, but it was really about love. It's not romantic, but it was about love. That's why I like Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind. So I don't know if anyone's watched it. It's a story about a couple that were dating and they broke up and they decided to get a procedure to erase their memories of each other. So the lady in the relationship got the procedure first, and then the guy found out and he decided to get the procedure. So the movie was about his procedure. So when he was getting his procedure was pretty much what the whole movie was about. So we were seeing the memories that were getting erased. It was honestly, it was cerebral because it also played with time in the sense that we were seeing the memories being erased, but almost in reverse. It took us through his timeline when they dated and took us all kind of in a circle back to when they first met. And it took me, like, for me, it felt really deep because it started off with them broken up. And then we now circle round to when they were actually in love and when they were together and seeing them happy. It played backwards. Again, it was cerebral for me. And if you're interested in this sort of alternative storytelling, I would say watch it because it's brilliant. And I think it won awards, like award-winning movie, by the way. It was so interesting because the producers, they deliberately cast people that were almost how would I say this? They didn't cast typical people for the roles. So they cast, for instance, Jim Carrey as the romantic love interest. Like, Jim Carrey is a character actor. He always does something funny. But this was a brooding man that just got his heart broken. And Kate Winslet was the female, and she's this free spirit. So again, they went against type, which also made it very interesting because you don't see this sort of people in this sort of roles. it made it very different and kind of made me pay attention because I was thinking to myself, this isn't typical of Kate Winslet. This isn't kind of what she does. Jim Carrey is always playing one silly character or the other. He's here just playing a normal guy. That also made me very interested and made me sit down and really understand. For me, it was the idea of memories. Distill it down to the idea of we were in love at some point, but we we went through months and months of loving each other, ups and downs, and we get to a point where we we can't even stand each other and we want to erase memories. And I feel like there's some breakups that might feel like that. But in order to get to a point where you hate someone so much, you want to delete memories of them, you must have loved them so much as well. That's why, for me, this is definitely a story about love. You cannot hate someone you didn't love at some point because there's that very thin line, very, very thin line. You kind of love, you hate as much as you loved. That's how I feel. For someone to really hurt you is because you really love them or you really deeply cared about them. And I can personally talk about like feeling like there's some people that I wish I could erase from my memory. But what ties this and makes it kind of lovely and a little romantic was he regretted getting the procedure done. While during the procedure, we could see him really like wanting to hide her memories, saying he didn't want to go through with this, but he was already under the procedure, so there was nothing he could do. It was just so sad that it was the recollection, it was him going through his memories that got him to the point of, I actually don't want to lose this person. Plot twist, he gets the procedure done, he he loses the memories of her but meets her again and they do it all over again. Like, come on, what more do you want from a love story? But yeah, Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Mind, for me, it really tells it like a love story from a different angle by starting off with a breakup. I truly felt it being profound. But I will not waste any more time talking about it. But if you're interested in alternative love stories, I would definitely say you should watch Eternal Sunshine of Spotless Mind. It was really, really great for me. Another one would be, yeah, it was so hard because there was a lot to talk about. But one that I would do this because it's a bit sentimental, and I think it's one of the first romantic movies I ever watched as a kid. Titanic. Yeah, maybe Pretty Woman, but Pretty Woman I don't think was, Titanic. Let's say Titanic. So Titanic, of course, classic love story. I mean, we all know Rose was a selfish lady. Everybody knows. I remember watching as a kid and I always thought to myself, but there's space on that plank. I always thought that as a kid. I'm like, why did she just let him join her on the plank? Yeah, you might both die, but at least there's space. I always thought that even as a kid. But yeah, Titanic, it's very classic. I won't feel great if I didn't put Titanic on this because it really was just that, star-crossed lovers. It's probably never going to happen in real life. What are the odds of very well-to-do rich girl on a big boat hanging out with a pauper? Come on. It's only in the movies. That doesn't really happen in real life. But yeah, it was just that star-crossed lovers, right? And it was beautiful to see them have what they had in that little time on the boat. It really was beautiful. It was steamy, but it was just really beautiful. However, he also pointed out how love can be selfish because Rose was selfish. She did not as much as she loved Jack, she didn't let him on that plank with her. In my mind, if I love someone so much, I'd rather we die together on this tiny little plank. But she let him just freeze to death in the water while staring in his eyes. Still romantic though. I mean, I wouldn't knock it. It was still romantic. James Cameron knew what he was doing with that one. But yeah, Titanic would definitely have to be on there. I feel like everyone on earth has watched that movie and it gets the spot because of what it was in its time. And no one can deny that it's a classic love story for sure. Okay. What will be another one? I would say, okay, because I have just 3 more spots and I don't want to throw anything away. But for a recent movie, I would say will be Materialists. It was last year, I think. Materialists came out last year. I want to believe 2024, 2025. And initially, I didn't think it was a romantic movie. Neither did I think it was a movie about love. But in doing my research for this episode, I realized that it actually deserves a spot. First of all, I loved the movie. I didn't think I would, because watching, I was like, what is wrong with this lady? But the end tied it in together, made it make sense. So, Materialist, it's Pedro Pascal, Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans. Beautiful cast, obviously. It started off great. I didn't even know what it was about. I didn't think it was a romantic movie, a movie about love. And I was getting into it. I'm like, okay, this is going great. This makes sense to me. She I don't know if you've not seen it, sorry, there might be a bit of spoiler, but she worked in a matchmaking company. So her job was really to match make people, and she enjoyed it. She absolutely loved it. Obviously, at that point, she seemed to be a character that was detached from the idea of love, because everything was binary to her. It was a list, and if you didn't make that list, you couldn't translate to who she wanted to be with. And that's kind of how she was matching up her couples. And it worked because everyone came to her with a list of what they wanted in people. So it made her cynical in a way. Anyways, we find out that she has this ex-boyfriend that they were truly in love, but he didn't make her list, because she had a list of what she wanted in a partner, and this ex-boyfriend didn't make her list. They were in love, but it just wasn't her type on paper. Anyways, she meets her type on paper, and who was Pedro Pascal. Initially, she's a bit hesitant. She's like, yeah, this is it. Everything was binary to her at that point. So Dakota Johnson meets her type on paper, who is Pedro, and he shows interest in her because she's also his type on paper. They start dating. It looks great. I mean, of course, there's a bit of back and forth, and they're doing great. They're doing so well. He's everything she ever wanted, and at that point, I was excited. I'm like, okay, this is fantastic. This is going to work. I thought that was the love. It was looking perfect, because I feel like everyone does have a list, and it doesn't make the love story any less romantic to me. But it was one of those things where she now had buyer's remorse after being in a relationship with who was she what she thought she wanted, that was the perfect guy. Really, she finds out that he actually wasn't working for her. And I think what tipped the point was she realized that he was as superficial as she was. There was a moment in bed where she saw that he had had leg lengthening surgery. So he was originally a shorter person, but then he went to get leg lengthening surgery, so to make himself taller. And at that point, I think that's what broke the facade for her, because she wanted someone that was 6'1", but truly you were probably 5'10" before. And it didn't work out. They ended up breaking up, and she went back to her true love, who was a broke man. But still, she loved him, and it worked out. What I did like was it felt somewhat true. It was almost reality in a way. And that's kind of what scared me about it. And that's when I realized it was really a story about love, because a lot of us have ideas. We think this is what we want. We write it down. I want him to be 6'5". I want her to be beautiful. You need, like, a lot of the couples she was working with, they would come with unrealistic lists. They would write out these old things, and then she would present candidates with the same things they wanted, and they would be like, nah, she's not this. Nah, I want someone this. I want someone that. And it was very sad to see how the dating scene is now, what people are actually asking for. But it's true. That was the part that just made it click for me, that this is actually what we are. This is the world we're in now, where everyone is being rated on paper, and not realizing that it takes more than what's on paper for you to make a real connection, to make a real love connection. And it took her to get what she wanted on paper to realize that the man she was seeing before, that didn't have any money, was a struggling actor, was who she was truly happy with. So it was that, you be careful what you pray for sort of scenario. She prayed for this 6'5", very successful, very rich man that could get her anything and everything she wanted, but she still didn't love him. I mean, that might not be true for everyone. I feel like if I was her, I would definitely be in love, but it didn't work out for her that way. And she ended up going back to who she truly loved, even though he was broke. And that made it a love story for me, because sometimes you might need to go round the block to realize what love really means for you. So that's Materialist for me, and that's why it makes it the top list on the story about love. Okay, the other one would be P.S. I Love You. This is my favorite love story ever. Every time I watch this movie, I cry from the beginning to the end. It's a movie about love through and through, but the second theme to the movie is grief, but it's anchored in love. It's grief anchored in love. It's an adaptation of a novel, but the movie did the novel justice. Oh Lord, I've watched it probably a million times and I've cried a million times. It's one of those movies that if I just wanted to be my feelings, I would go and watch it because it makes you so emotional. Anyways, if you haven't watched P.S. I Love You, it's Gerard Butler and Million Dollar Baby lady. I forget her name, but yes, Lady Million Dollar Baby. Gerard Butler is her husband and he dies shortly after they get married. They were so in love. They lived in New York. They were beautiful. They were so in love. He dies of cancer. Unknown to her, he had written a series of letters to help her during, oh God, thinking about it, I'm even getting emotional because it's that deep. He had written a series of letters to help get her through his death, essentially. She's in their one bedroom apartment and she receives a letter from her husband. She's like, what is this? What do you mean? She doesn't know where it's coming from, but yeah, questioning the whole thing with her family. So her mom was always the one like helping post the letters and all sorts of things. But he wrote a series of letters because he loved her and just wanted her to be able to move on. And part of the letters where obviously initially she was really sad. She didn't understand why she called it like he was maltreating her at that point, because why are you writing me letters from the dead, from beyond? So initially it was very painful for her to read letters from her dead husband, but eventually she started looking forward to those letters because it made her really pick up her life and try to move on. He was able to take her to his hometown in Ireland, and she thought he wanted her to find someone else to be in love with, and she tried. She tried to fall in love with someone else, but it didn't work out. She quickly realized that, you know what, this isn't what this means. I'm not necessarily supposed to move on to someone else. But she did find love. She found love in her passion in art. She became a shoe designer. That was the love she found eventually. So for me, the love story wasn't just the love that her husband had for her or that she had for her husband. It was the other end of coming out of grief and finding another love, which is passion. She found her passion in art. So she became a shoe designer. She picked up something else. And that was what she ended up loving. Initially, she thought she was going to love another man. And that was what she was sort of focusing on during the grieving period. Like, okay, maybe I need to find another man to love me. But that's not what she needed. And for me, every time I think about that, it just makes you realize that love is different. It doesn't always have to be romantic. And this is one of those stories where it showed what romantic love was and what another type of love could be. The fact that you could love something else and find fulfillment in something else and still be whole. So that's why P.S. I Love You for me is one of those great love stories, because it deals with the different aspects of love. And I would, if you're like me and you don't mind shedding a tear or two, I would say I should definitely watch it. Like, I'll probably watch it tonight. But yeah, P.S. I Love You. Okay, and now the fifth one, because it's also new, will be Wuthering Heights. Valentine's Day release, just came out. Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie, fantastic actors, love both of them. Beautiful, beautiful actors. Wuthering Heights. What can I say? If you don't know this, Wuthering Heights is originally a novel by, what's her name? Emily Bronte. It's literally an old book, really old. This is her only book. This was the only novel she ever wrote. She died shortly after writing the novel. And there's been several rewrites of her book, several adaptations of her book, and several movies of her book, because it's really that kind of book. It's amazing. It's one of those novels that it's about deep love, literally. But I'm going to talk about the book. No, I'm going to talk about the movie now, not the book right now. The movie that just came out, the 2026 Wuthering Heights, literally Wuthering Heights. The director of this movie, Emanuela is her name, I think. She deliberately put the Wuthering Heights in quotes because that is how she wants this to be seen. And I wish I knew that before I saw it, because I have the curse of having read the book beforehand. Like, I've read Wuthering Heights. I don't know why. It was a long time ago, because I feel like it was one of those books that was always being mentioned, and I just needed to know what it was about. So I had the curse of having read the book and having expectations, obviously. So I go in there thinking, okay, we're seeing a movie adaptation of Wuthering Heights. So this is going to be a bit controversial because, okay, maybe not controversial, but I feel two ways about it. I feel disappointed because I know what the book is about, but I also feel like the movie was a good movie. Good movie because I know now that the director was intentional by not necessarily being true to the original novel. She did say she didn't want to be a remake of the original novel. She wanted it to be, she described it as making what she envisioned as a teenage girl. So this was her interpretation of when she read Wuthering Heights as a teenager. What she envisioned is what she made. And if that's the case, fantastic movie. Because honestly, your vision as a teenager is beautiful. It was fantastic. I mean, set design, everything was beautiful. It looked great. Like, there was a visceral reaction to how it was captured. The director, for context, she was the director of Saltburn. So if you've seen Saltburn, just imagine Saltburn, but in Wuthering Heights. Anyways, so I kind of felt the continuation of Saltburn with this movie. You could see she kind of has a style. This is her taste level. She likes things being a bit provocative. I remember like just watching, I'm like, oh, yeah, I see some Saltburn in here. Not just because Jacob Elordi was in Saltburn and in Wuthering Heights, but I could see the nod to her Saltburn style. Again, I'm only disappointed to the extent that I went in there thinking it was going to be closer to what the original novel was, but I give it a good rating simply because she did a good job in interpreting what her vision for the novel was. But as someone that's read the novel, I just feel like she missed a lot. In fact, she definitely missed a lot. I feel like she cut out a lot of the book that played an important role to depicting what the author really was trying to portray. I feel like I feel like Wuthering Heights, this 2026 version, focused a lot more about the sexual aspect of this. And it wasn't necessarily romantic. It was more sexual than romantic. That's kind of how I see it. And that's the nod to the Saltburn that I would say. It was a movie about love, for sure. It was a movie about love. There's no denying it. It was a movie about love, but it just wasn't the book. But I will focus on what the movie was. It was really good. The costume, the set design, the location was beautiful. It was great. But what I loved the most about it was the diversity in cast. I like the fact that, and I think, of course, it's appropriate for this, for the era we're in now, just being able to see diversity. I'm so excited about that. Like the fact that she casts different people, and the important people in the story were given, they played the role fantastically. I feel like what Wuthering Heights, the 2026 version, did was just solely focus on Catherine and Heathcliff's love. Meanwhile, and that's fine. I honestly, it's okay, because a lot of the other adaptations of Wuthering Heights, the other movies, they really had to sacrifice one thing or the other from the book. No movie of Wuthering Heights that I've seen so far, and I think I've seen 2 other versions, was able to capture the whole novel in one story. So they kind of had to make sacrifices. It's either they focus on the love story part, or you focus on the revenge part, or you focus on the social hierarchy part. And what this one did was try to solely focus on the love part. So it was really about the love between Catherine and Heathcliff, which honestly I don't mind, because The other ones I've seen didn't do that too much or too well. So what they did do in this one was really give us a steamy version of Heathcliff and Catherine's love, which I'm actually not mad at. I actually love it, and I love the way it was told. Obviously, having the bias of reading the book beforehand, there were a lot of things I was like, oh no, that didn't happen. No, this didn't happen. But I have to realize that this is her interpretation, and she's deliberately said this because she doesn't want the fans to come for her. She has said it. This is my interpretation, which is why the title is in quotes. It's not exactly like Emily Bronte's actual novel, but I like that Jacob Elordi, and I was afraid that Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie would not have chemistry. I was really afraid of that because maybe this is my bias as a viewer. Obviously, I know Margot is married. I know Jacob is younger. I just wondered what their dynamic would look like. But you know what? They sold it. They sold it because with rom-coms or romantic movies in general, what really sells the love story is the chemistry between the actors. That's what movies after in post production or like when they're marketing, that's what they try to sell you. So that's why you see the actors they're always paired up, they're always, being touchy and saying lovely things about each other, especially when the actors are single. A lot of the time the publicity around the movie will try to spin up rumors about them possibly being together or not. But of course, in this case, you can't do that. Margot's married, her husband's probably like a producer of the movie or something. So I was afraid that my external knowledge bias would not allow me see their chemistry. But you know what? They sold it, and I can't take that away from them. They were fantastic together. Please, it was good. They can do another one and I'll be fine. It was gorgeous. What was the best part for me was Heathcliff when he came back. And he came back with the earring, and I'm like, oh, okay, you're gangster. Okay, good, looking great. He looked fantastic. He looked really, really good. I love the visual representation of everything. But again, just being true to the novel is not what this was, because if anybody knows, Heathcliff was actually supposed to be a black man, not me. But this is what Emily said, okay? This is what she wrote in her novel. He was described as a dark-skinned person. But yeah, we got Jacob Elordi, and that's fine. This is what she imagined when she was reading it. I don't know how you imagine a white man when the author described him as black, but it is what it is. She imagined a white person. She gave us a white person. It's fine. I already said how I just love the representation, but I missed a lot of what made Wuthering Heights a love story for me, because I feel like they didn't capture the character development that was needed to really sell why this love was intense. Because in the book, the intensity of the love was 1,000 times more than what we saw. I feel like in this version, Margot was even seemingly more in love with Heathcliff. Now I'm using both their names. Catherine was more in love with Heathcliff in this 2026 version than in the book. In the book, Heathcliff was the one that was dead for this babe. But in the movie, early on, it seemed as though Catherine was really on him, was really on Heathcliff, and it was like, that's not really how. Again, difference in opinion, right? When I read it, I felt like it was a Heathcliff thing more than a Catherine thing, but the movie made it seem it was like Catherine was really on his level or higher. But in the book, it was always Heathcliff that was dead for Catherine. What made this work even more for me, more than the book, is that in the book, I got a bit of sorry to say this, but it was given a bit incestual for me. It was a bit of incest in the book, because when Heathcliff was brought into the Enshaw home, he was brought in as another child. Like, they were brought up together. The idea was, oh, you have like, in quote, like he adopted him. So in my mind, I was reading about siblings. The thing that the movie did for me here was take away that sibling part for me. And I liked it, because I remember reading the book and I kept thinking to myself, oh my gosh, like, people grew up together. This is essentially like your brother. You should not be feeling this way about each other. Like, Heathcliff, you shouldn't be feeling this way about Catherine because she's kind of like your sister. But then again, back in those days, they literally married each other. So I guess it was fine. The cousins married each other. There was inbreeding, so it was probably okay. But I like that the movie did not necessarily go that ancestral route, and they didn't necessarily play up the whole "you're my new brother" kind of thing that happened in the novel. So yeah, I would leave it at that. If you haven't seen Wuthering Heights and you want to, I would say you should definitely see this. You can abandon all the other versions, watch this one. It was really good for what it was. You don't even have to read the novel, but if you want to know the other things that were missing from the movie, you should definitely read the novel. I would say it's a fantastic read. It's one of those love stories that would sell it for you. What sold this as a love story for me was the novel, my knowledge of the novel, but I was fine with seeing the depiction of the sexual aspect of their love in this version. That's my top five for romance movies, movies about love, and why they are movies about love for me. Now, I want to move gears and switch over to books that capture love stories in the way that I think is romantic and truly about love. So I do, of course, I've read a lot of romantic novels, a lot of romantic, probably more romantic novels or romance novels, as we say, than anything else. Because growing up as a teenager, that's all I could afford to read. That's what I could afford to buy. That's what I could afford to read. So I'm talking all the Mills and Boons. I'm talking all the Silhouettes. I'm talking all the Harlequins. I read them all. But I'm not going to focus on those because those weren't necessarily the love stories that are important to me today. Those were they were fantasy. They were things that would never happen, literally things that would never happen. But these ones are, I feel like, more grounded in reality, and they capture love in the way that makes more sense to me. Some of them have already been adapted into movies, but they were books first. And I actually read these books before I ever saw the movies, which again gave me some bias. But I will say some of the movies did the book justice. Absolutely. So I would do top fives or my best fives, but I'll just give you the list of some of the books that capture love for me in a very unique way. So there's Me Before You. I think everyone has read that. It's actually a series, but Me Before You is the one that I feel like touched on the love part the most. People with Me on Vacation. There's actually a movie of that now. It's out now. But People with Me on Vacation is quite recent as well. There's The Notebook. There's P.S. I Love You. Yes, it was a book first. P.S. I Love You for sure. There's One Day. There's The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. There's Great Big Life by Emily Henry. There's a lot more, but these are the ones that I have selected specifically for this episode because some of them have already been made into great movies, but they truly, for me, captured the essence of love, not just romance. Some of them are definitely romantic in their own way, but I really just want to focus on the love aspect and just think of alternative ways where we're seeing love and not just in a generic way. Okay, so I'm going to do my top fives. I've said all these books. I've read all of them, and if you haven't, I would say you should definitely read it. Did I mention? So there's a movie called Love, Rosie, but it's based on a book called Where Rainbows End. Yes, I read Where Rainbows End way before I saw, obviously, way before I saw Love, Rosie. And I remember when I was watching Love, Rosie, I was like, wait, I know this story. Like, it literally, I was like, wait, I know, like, I've read, like, and then because it wasn't the same. A lot of the times, movies have the same name as the books, but this didn't. The book was actually called Where Rainbows End. I think that, yeah, that's what it was called. Let me confirm. Yes, Where Rainbows End is what the movie was actually called, what the book was called, but then the movie was titled Love, Rosie. So that confused me. I was like, but I do know. And then eventually I realized that it was based on the book that I already read. Anyways, okay, let's talk about my top fives. I might as well just start with Where Rainbows End. So Where Rainbows End is a book by this, well, I don't know if she's famous, but she's one of my favorite romance novel authors. I forget her name now, but she's Irish. She's an Irish author, so a lot of her books are based in Ireland. I don't know. They had to write what you know, so it's based out in Ireland. The original book, and it captures love from the perspective of two friends. This is why I love this so much. It's love that started very genuinely about two friends that just loved each other and were supporting each other and just wanted the best for each other. But then they end up leading different lives. They go their separate ways. One goes ahead to be a doctor, another has a baby along the way while she was young, marries, but then finds her way in the end. She thought she could marry someone that would just be there for her and her child, but was not love. And they circle back around. They're both older and they find each other again, but they maintain their friendships, the friendship they had the whole time. They were friends from when they were super young, but then they lost touch for a while, but they found their way back to each other. What I love about this is not just the part where they ended up together. It's the fact that in life, sometimes that's what needs to happen. You might lose touch with someone, but that love might never actually go away, especially if it's true, genuine love. For me, I love the fact that it started out as a friendship. They lost touch, but then they never stopped loving each other. And they didn't even know that the love they had for each other was romantic until later on. But they kept missing that window where the love could turn into romance, right? So at the point where this one was feeling like, oh, I think I have romantic feelings, it wasn't the time where this person could receive that. But eventually they were able to get to that point. They were much older, for sure. They had different lives already, but they got their second chance. I just love the fact that it started from a friendship and it ended up in a true love story. That's why this is one of the tops for me, because it explores love in a gradual form, in the fact that it can start from this but end up being this. That's what I liked. And there was also it kind of circled round to her child also now having a childhood friend. So I don't know why they did that, but in the book, that's kind of what happened. Her child had a childhood friend where it now seemed like, okay, they were now having this sort of similar love story where that's what happened with her and her friend. But anyways, if you haven't read Where Rainbows End, I'm not sure if they've retitled it now, but it's the movie of Love, Rosie. You would absolutely love the book if you loved the movie, because the movie really condensed a lot more. The story itself, the novel was a bit more intense, I would say, for me when I read it. And again, it was based in different places, right? So if you want something that's really profound, if you really want to see how love can change over time, how love can progress, Where Rainbows End would be like my number one pick. Okay. Another one would be P.S. I Love You by the same author. I'm just gonna knock it out because it's by the same author. She has fantastic stories, by the way. I forget her name now. She's Irish. She has fantastic stories. There's this other one where, okay, no, I won't talk about the other one now. But P.S. I Love You, again, was originally a book. And the book was fantastic. And that's why, of course, it was made into a movie. But of course, the movie changed things a little bit. If you like the movie, the one with Jared Butler and the $1 Million Baby Lady, you would absolutely love the book. You would. You don't have to read the book, but I, being a book lover, would always say read the book first because then it gives you the whole story. You're able to see what the author is really what she was really trying to do, what she was really trying to depict. For me, initially, when I read the book, it was just the grief that I could focus on. I was just so sad the entire time because I was very focused on the grief until the end, when she found love again, or found love in something else, is when I literally had like a aha. I was like, oh wait, wow, this was really about love the whole time. It was her finding love again. But I would say the movie definitely told the story well. It did it justice, but I would always advocate for the book. I am that person. Read the book first and you will see why the movie made sense. Okay. The next one will be, I don't know, should we do People With Me on Vacation? I know it's a movie as well, but the book was really good. The book was actually really good too. And it's another one that I would say the movie tried. The movie really tried, but I preferred reading the book for People We Meet on Vacation because I was able to just have these characters the way I wanted it to be. Not to say the actors in the movie didn't do well, they did, but the book was a bit more detailed. I feel like the movie lost a lot of the details. Yeah, the movie definitely lost all of the details, but for People We Meet on Vacation, that would be one I would say skip the movie, read the book. That's just me. Another book, this one hasn't been made into a movie yet. We'll see if it ever gets. It's by Rebecca Yarros. Things Will Leave Unfinished. Why this was a profound love story for me is because it wasn't just about romantic love. And at this stage of my life, I'm so much more invested in showing love in other ways, right? I'm the believer of love is not just romantic. It's for everyone you care for. And this book, Things Will Leave Unfinished, was really about that. It was about an author that didn't finish a book and she died. Her granddaughter had the rights to the book. They needed someone else to finish off the book. And the original author was a romance novel writer. So they needed someone to sort of capture the end of this one novel for her posthumously. And it was a love story. The author that was commissioned to finish the book fell in love with the granddaughter, and that was what we were made to think the whole book was about. But another part of the book was also putting us through the manuscript that needed to be finished, which was also another love story. So it was really a love story in a love story in a love story. And in the end, we find out, because the entire thing was really about finishing that unfinished love story and finding a good ending for it. And we find out the truth at the end of that love story, that it wasn't even the love story of the original author that we thought it was. Anyways, a bit of the complexity in there, but it was totally worth it because it was almost 3 stories in one, and everybody finds who they are meant to be with. Everybody ends up with the right person, and everybody finds love. So it discussed romantic love. It discussed familial love, like sibling love. It was just really profound. I didn't expect the ending. It was beautiful. And it just reinforced the idea that love isn't necessarily romantic. It's sometimes what you do for your sister. It's sometimes what you do for your brother that really shows what love is. And that's kind of what this book did. All right. Another one is Great Big Love Story. Is that what it's called? No, let me confirm. It's Great Big Beautiful Life. It hasn't been made into a movie yet. It's by Emily Henry. It's also a book about 2 authors trying to write a book. Why do I keep reading books like this? So this one is about, but it's really interesting. I don't know why I keep reading books about authors, but it's coincidence. It was about 2 authors trying to vie for the position of writing the biography for someone. Unbeknownst to one of the author, it was a biography about someone they were related to, but they didn't know this. Anyways, the story ends up revealing itself obviously in the end, and we find out that it really was a love about a mother wanting to reconnect with her child after several years. And it wasn't because she never loved the child or gave up the child because she didn't love the child. It was because she loved the child too much. She had to give up the child for her child's safety. And it really, again, it was another one of those love story in another love story. There was a romantic aspect because these 2 authors now found each other, and the actual subject of the biography was now revealed to be chasing after the love of her child. So I like the fact that even when we're telling a romantic story, we can still explore the idea that the love of a child and a mother can exist in the same plane, and that one doesn't necessarily usurp the other. One love isn't greater than the other. Because you love your husband doesn't mean you can't love your child the same way or even better. So for me, it really was less than the romantic love, was really the love about a mother and a child. That's what really sold this for me as a love story. The final book I will talk about, also because it's relevant, and it is it really is relevant right now. It's Wuthering Heights. I know there's a movie and there's been several movies, but the novel itself, I think it's one of the greatest love stories out there. Yes, I would say it. And I can defend that because the love that was depicted by Emily Bronte in this novel was intense. It was profound. The way she described Heathcliff's love for Catherine, it makes sense how he ended up just going crazy and dying. It really does, because I can't understand or imagine how someone just like loves someone so deeply. Like, he loved her deeply to the point of insanity and death. And he only found peace when he died. That kind of love. He only found peace when he died, because then in his mind, it's like, then I get to be with Catherine. That's intense. This man did not move on. He didn't move on. For me, the story, of course, the movie missed a lot of parts of the actual novel. If you've read Wuthering Heights, you would know that the 2026 version missed a lot. The novel itself explores a lot of other things for sure. I would say the social class issue. But for me, love was definitely the revenge issue with Heathcliff going and coming back, then the power struggle issue for sure. But I feel like all those issues were only came about because of the actual love Heathcliff had for Catherine. Of course, initially I found the love to be quite questionable. Heathcliff and Catherine are supposed to be siblings, let's be honest. I mean, that was like your foster brother. You were supposed to be siblings. So initially I just couldn't get it. I was like, why? You can't be loving each other. Like, this is craziness. I found it a bit ancestral, but I guess technically they were never related. They're not the same blood, so maybe it's okay. But in my mind, when you grew up with someone as a sibling, you should never look at or think about them in a certain way. But it was in the 1800s, actually, was 1800s, sorry, was the 18th century. That was allowed, I guess. So I had to sort of take my mind away from that and be like, you know what? In that century, it was okay to marry your cousin. So maybe this was also okay. But I feel like the revenge plot, the power plot, was all fueled by Heathcliff's love for Catherine. If he didn't love her, he would not see the need to come back and then buy Wuthering Heights and try to get her away from Edgar. Like, he would have not done any of those things. And you could see the love continue with him pretty much obsessing over Catherine's child. Even in her death, he still wanted to keep her alive in one way or the other, was memorializing her. For me, it was the most intense sort of love I'd ever seen in my life. It was just too much. So having all those other things there was great to sort of break things a little bit, to take us away from the intensity of the love. Because if that was all we had throughout, it would have been way too much. There would have been a lot of fatigue. But I like the fact that there was the revenge that he needed to take out on the people that maltreated him. I mean, Hindley Hindley deserved everything that came to him, I feel like, in that book. But honestly, I don't know if it's a good wish to have that someone love you like Heathcliff loved Catherine. But if that's a thing, I feel like, yeah, everyone should feel or deserves that kind of love. How Heathcliff loved Catherine to the point of death. And I don't even think Romeo and Juliet have anything on Heathcliff at this point. Romeo and Juliet, sure, great love story, but Heathcliff brought that and did it even better as far as I was concerned, because everything he did up until he died was for Catherine. And he was true to her the entire time. He said he would do, wasn't necessarily true to her, because he ended up marrying Isabella. Is that her name? Isabella? Bella is, yeah, whatever. Edgar's sister. He married Edgar's sister. But I feel like that also, again, made it kind of real. It made it, it took away from the constant love, intense love idea, because I like the deviation. Like, oh, okay, he had to do something else. But it was also still in the pursuit of Catherine's love. So marrying someone else was still to show Catherine. It was still to sort of, everything was just about Catherine. But yeah, if you have some time on your hands, I would say read Wuthering Heights, Read Wuthering Heights if you really want to see what intense love is about. But the good thing about this novel is that it explores other themes. There's a racial aspect, I would say. Heathcliff was described to be a black person. And I feel like that plays a lot into the, I don't want to give everything off, but it plays a lot into how certain things happened and what, like, it just made sense that the social hierarchy issue only played out because of the color of his skin and what his drive was to come back and sort of show the people. He wanted to show them and stick it in their face like, now I've come back, I can buy you, I can buy this estate, and I'm more successful than you are. But that rounds up for me the book aspect of love and romance and the books that portray love in a way that I truly connect with. Again, these are the things that I've read. These are all my opinions. I mean, I would love to know what you have read, what you think about some of these stories if you would be reading them, but that rounds it off for books. In doing the research and collating my top movies and top novels for romance and love, I really had to dig deep and think through, why do I even read some of these books, or why do I watch some of these movies? What am I hoping to gain? And I realized that after watching all these things and reading all these movies, still no expert in love. I still don't know anything about it. I still don't know anything because it's such a subjective feeling. All I know is that we are all looking for some sort of connection one way or the other. But one thing I have learned from all these movies is that once you feel it, you know it. And it doesn't have to be romantic to be love. There is the love you have for your siblings, there's love you have for your friends, and sometimes that might be the love that you need. It doesn't always have to be romantic. Love is anything you want it to be, except toxic love. That's not good. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all social media platforms because we're going to keep the conversation going there. I want to know what you've read, what you've watched, what are your top romantic novels, what are your top movies. I want to know if my tops are in your tops or vice versa. I really am interested in seeing what everyone thinks. And please send me recommendations of movies or books that you would like me to review or you like me to read, whatever it is. I'm really interested. I want us to keep the conversation going, and see you in the next episode.